Okay, so students in an exam were asked to highlight something that seems simple, but it's kind of like a trap. You understand? Because when you're asked to talk about the functions of hemoglobin, you have to actually go in depth. All right, you have to actually talk about it in depth rather than just listing, then going away. Okay, so they said that you should outline the functions of hemoglobin. Outline the functions of hemoglobin. So yeah, this is hemoglobin, right? So first of all, you know the structure to actually help you in trying to answer this question. All right. So in outlining the functions of hemoglobin, first of all, you list it. When you list the functions, then you now start what? Answering it one by one. So first is oxygen transport. All right. Oxygen transport. So for oxygen transport, then we'll have what? Removal of what? Carbon dioxide. Oxygen transport. Removal of carbon dioxide. Then acid buffering. Then transport of gases. Then control of vascular tone. Oxygen transport. Removal of what? Carbon dioxide. Acid buffering. Transport of what? Gases. Control of vascular tone. So for what we have here is now we'll talk about the oxygen now, transport now. Now it transports oxygen from the lungs to tissues. Right? When you breathe in, it settles in the lungs. So it's the hemoglobin that actually help you transport that from the lungs to the tissues. Alright. So nearly complete saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen takes place in the lungs. So an efficient oxygen offloading now takes place in the tissues. Alright. It saturates in the lungs. When it gets to the tissues, it has to offload. So normal hemoglobin under physiological condition has a dissociation curve that is sigmoid. Sigmoid. There's a G here, sorry. Alright. So now this ensures that oxygen is taken up at high oxygen tension, which is found in the lungs, and is released readily. Like offloading it is very easy in the tissues, you understand? But myoglobin actually has a curve that is known as what? Hyperbolic curve in contrast. Alright. So the change in conformation of oxygen molecule is brought about by a complex coordinated series of changes in the structure of what? Hemoglobin molecule as hem binds to what? Oxygen. Alright. So what is the affinity of what? Hemoglobin for oxygen? Now, the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen is dependent on several things. Alright. So it's dependent on pH. You understand? Whether it's acidic or basic. Alright. It's dependent on temperature. It's dependent on the 2,3. Alright, this is 2,3, right? 2,3 diphosphoglycerate. Alright. 2,3. Okay, diphosphoglycerate. So actually DPG, right? Yeah. 2,3 diphosphoglycerate. Okay. Now increase of hemoglobin affinity for oxygen causes the curve to shift to the right. Alright. But a decrease in affinity of hemoglobin to oxygen will cause the curve to shift to the left. You get? So now, another factor or another function of hemoglobin is what? Removal of carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is transported from tissues through blood to the lungs, where it is excreted in what? Air. Right? So about 78% is transported as what? Okay, this acid. Alright. And this is actually formed by what? Ionization of carbonic acid. Alright. So that's a 78, right? That's a 78, right? That's a 78. Alright, so this is bicarbonate before it is converted to what? Carbonic acid. 78. Then 13% of it will be bound to proteins as what is known as what? Carbaminoproteins. Alright. Examples of these carbaminoproteins are what? Carbaminoalbumin, carbaminoglobulins. Alright. So carbon dioxide binds to the basic groups present on the proteins of physiological pH. Now 99% of carbon dioxide is transported in solution in plasma and cell water. Alright. So for a recap now, you say that 78% is what? As bicarbonate. Okay. Transported as bicarbonate. 13% as what? Carbaminoproteins. 9% will be transported in plasma, okay, and cell water. Alright. So this is a recap of the structure of hemoglobin. Now talking about the acid buffering um, function of what? Hemoglobin. For the acid buffering function, we said that it's quite common, right? So commonly, like if you're adding carbon dioxide and water, it will form, okay, the bicarbonate. Alright. This will now dissociate to give you what? The hydrogen and the carbonic acid. You understand? Now carbonic acid produce now is now what to serve as what? A buffer of acid base reaction in the body. Right? Then for the transport of gases generally, we see that although the major physiological ligand for for hemoglobin, that's like the major gas that hemoglobin will be transporting, is what is known as what? Oxygen. So other ligands like carbon monoxide and nitric oxide can also be transported by what? Hemoglobin. In fact, carbon monoxide is even much more, it will bind much more to hemoglobin than oxygen. You understand? So carbon monoxide binds 400 times more tightly to hemoglobin than oxygen, which can actually cause more toxicity. Carbon monoxide is produced as a result of breakdown of hem or inhaled as air pollutant. Now, raw ambient concentration of what? Carbon monoxide can even displace oxygen that's already bound to hem. This can now exaggerate any clinical correlation that it will be bringing up. Alright. Then carbon monoxide moves what? Oxygen dissociation curve to the left. Alright. Clinical correlates of of carbon monoxide poisoning cannot be explained by dissociation of oxygen alone, right? So you should note that. Then lastly, we talk about control of vascular tone. Now, that one is mainly nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is a vasodilator and a signal transduction molecule. Anytime you interact with hemoglobin in complex ways, can actually regulate the vascular tone and blood flow. Okay. So nitric oxide oxidizes what? Oxyhemoglobin to methemoglobin. Now, methemoglobin cannot bind what? Oxygen. Now this will now result in what? Failure of delivery of what? Oxygen to tissues, and this will now cause what is known as functional amnesia. So nitric oxide reacts with what? Deoxyhemoglobin to form what? Nitrosyl hemoglobin. Nitric oxide reacts with other amino acids such as tyrosine and cysteine. Okay. And all of this is to form nitrosation products. So this and other nitric oxide reactions allow electrocyte to regulate what? Vascular tone, okay, blood flow, and this will now promote how oxygen is being delivered to tissues throughout the body. All right. So this is it for what? The functions of hemoglobin. Trying to go in depth on it.